Right, so let's move on to 1.3, locating points and midpoints. Not much vocabulary this time, but as per usual, look at the definitions of what they give you of the midpoint, and then eventually we'll get on to a segment by sector. But anyway, we're looking at the midpoints, and there is a formula for a midpoint, but when you've got coordinates. But when you've just got a number line like this, all you're interested in is adding the two coordinates together, or in this case the 2 points together, and dividing it by 2, and you'll get halfway. All right. In example number 1, what you've got is this Jacinta is hanging a picture. It's 15 inches from the left of the wall, and the right hand side is 37.5, so you want to hang it into the middle of that. So start off with, there's your formula, quote the formula, put in your two distances that they've given you, which is 15 and the 37.5, add them together and divide by 2, that's 26.25 or 26.25 from the left edge of the wall. Let's see how we use that in an example in question 1. The minimum rainfall is 1.7 and the maximum is 6.9. You need the midpoint. It's entirely up to you how you set it up, but if you want to set it up in column wise, you can do. So 1.9, 1.7 plus 6.9, if you add those two guys together, you get 8.6, and then obviously you've got to divide that by 2, which will give you 4.3. So the average, and it's centimetres, so the average is going to be, the midpoint is going to be 4.3. So we go from finding the midpoint of a line now, the midpoint on a coordinate plane. So the first thing you'll notice this time you've got two coordinates rather than points. And this time you've got the whole of the midpoint formula that which you'll get to know. And it's so you've got x1 plus x2 divided by 2, and then your two y coordinates, y1, y2 divided by 2. And again, it really doesn't matter which way you put it around, because you're going to get the same numbers anyway. So start with your formula. Your second line is showing you your working by, in other words, substituting in, and then finally simplifying. If it doesn't tell you to simplify it or not, you can actually leave it like that as fractions. But if you want to change it to top-heavy mixed fractions, you can do. It's entirely up to you. Okay, so either leave it as -5/2 as your x-coordinate, or change it to mixed fractions, -2.5, it's the same thing. Okay, well, we've already done question number 2 and question number 3 basically as example 1, but let's have a look at example 2 using the coordinates. I'm going to do number 4. Okay, so you know the formula is x1 plus x2 divided by 2. That will give you your x coordinate, and then y1 plus y2 divided by 2. That will give you the y coordinate. So in theory you're going to have 7 plus 4 divided by 2, and then you're going to have 1 minus 1 divided by 2. 7 plus 4 is 11, so you can leave it as 11/2. And then that will give you, and then 1 minus 1 will give you 0. So either you leave it as 11/2, or you can change your x coordinate to 5.5, 0. Okay. So now we're moving on to example 3. Now you're finding the missing coordinate. In other words, you've been told what the midpoint is. You've been told the coordinate of one of the ends, but you've got to find the other end. Well, basically, there's the formula again, the midpoint formula. As you can see, there's x1 and y1 is missing, but you've been given the answer. Okay, so separate them into two equations. So this equation here is the x, and then this equation here is going to be your y, but keep them separate. Okay, so if you take the left one, you've got x1 plus 3 divided by 2 is -1. You need to get rid of the divide by 2, so you multiply each side by 2 and you subtract the 3, and you finish up with -5. Do the same with the y coordinate, y plus -5/2. Multiply your answer by 2, so y1 minus 5 equals 4. Add 5 to both sides, so y equals 9, and you finish up with your end coordinate. Okay, so If you want, you can check, but now you've got your two end coordinates. You could just do a basic midpoint formula, put it in to make sure you do get the fact that they've given you the midpoint. So you can check your work one way or the other. So let's put that example into a question. Question number 7. You've been told that F is the midpoint, so 1, 3.5 is your midpoint, and J is 6, -2. You've got to find G. So again, follow it through. So I'm going to separate the x's from the y's. So x1, and this time you're going to add 6 divided by 2. Here's your midpoint formula, and that equals the answer, which is 1 in this case, as what F is. I'm going to do y at the same time. So y1 this time is going to be -2, because you're going to add -2, which is the same as -2, all divided by 2, and that's going to give you your answer, which is 3.5. Okay, so now let's go back to the x's. Well, the x's and the y's, we're going to multiply both of them by the 2, so you're going to have x1 plus 6 equals 2, and the y times is going to be y minus y1 minus 2 equals 7. Okay, you're going to subtract 4 from both sides, so x1 is going to equal -4, and you're going to add 2 to both sides of the y, so y1 is going to equal 7. No, it isn't, it's going to equal 9. Okay, so your coordinate is 9, -4. And again, so that's what G equals. If you put G and your J together, do it through the midpoint formula, you should finish up with 1 and 3.5. Okay, we're moving on to example 4, and again we're coming back into algebra. It tells you that Q is the midpoint, so that means that PQ, as it shows you here, PQ and QR must equal each other. So all you do is you set your equations to equal each other. Okay, you've got one variable. I know it's on both sides of the equals, but you've got one variable. You solve for y. Okay, and then you can substitute it back in, because it's asking you for a particular length. Okay, and then what it's asking you for here is, what is PQ? Well, PQ is 34. So if you substitute the fact that y equals 4 into it, you get 34. Okay, now stop at that if you want, but me personally, I would always do exactly the same, but for the other side as well. We know that PQ is 34, we know that y is 4. Well, you're going to get an answer anyway, but if you put y equals 4 into this guy, so this time you've got 14 plus the 5 times 4. Okay, 5 times 4 is 24, plus the 14. That will also give you 34. So QR is 34. Do you have to do that? Absolutely not, but it does give you a check that these two are both the same. It proves your algebra is correct. Okay, so I know we're working backwards with these examples, but let's have a look at example 3, which is question number 6. You've got to find a measure of LM, which is this guy here. Okay, but it tells you that M is the midpoint, so we know that these two segments are the same. So you've got 3x minus 2, and that equals 2x plus 1. Okay, I'm going to show you me working out. I always do the variables first, so I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. So x minus 2 equals 1, and then I'm going to add 2 to both sides, so x equals 3. Okay, now we only need LM I should say. So we've got 3 times 3 minus 2. Well, 3 times 3 is 9, minus 2 will give you 7. Okay, so that's the answer to this part. But, like I said, you don't have to do this, but when you do algebra, you'll always get an answer. So let's have a look at this guy. This is the same as 2 times 3 plus 1 this time, which gives us an answer of 7. Both these two guys are the same, which means that your algebra must be correct. Okay, so now we've done the midpoint, but now what's happening this time, what they're asking for you this time, is fractions of the distance. Rather than half distance, it could be anything else, okay? Well, this guy is, you want 1/6 of the distance from A to F. So first of all, A is -7 and F is 5. Absolute values again, remember, okay, using the distance formula, you're going to finish up with a distance of 12. Okay, but you want 1/6 of 12, so 12 multiplied by 1/6 will give you 2. Okay, but you then have to go back to A because it's asking you from A to F. So we start at -7, we add the 2 units, which is the answer we got up here, so we're going to finish up with -5. Okay, so let's have a look at example 5. I'm just going to do number 9, so let's have a look at number 9. This time I want 1/4 of the distance. Again, we're going from X to Y. Okay, so let's have a look at X. X is at -1. We want the absolute distance, remember. We're going from -1 and we're going up to Y. Okay, and that absolute value there is going to give us an 8. Okay, then we want a quarter distance, so 1/4 of 8 is going to give us 2. And then we know we're going to start from X and we're going to Y, so we start with our -1. We're going to add 2, which will give us a coordinate of +1. So if we wanted to put M on the line, it's going to go there.